For Rockford's 6th Ward features a local letter carrier running for office, but some say for his race, the election delivers legal confusion.
WIFR's Nathaniel Langley hears from the candidates, including the one who may violate the Hatch Act.
I can't see a problem and not want to fix it.
Lauren Stewart II believes his U.S. Postal Service job makes him a perfect fit for City Hall.
You're literally touching and seeing everyone in your community.
But according to some, that goal to represent Rockford's 6th Ward violates the 1939 Hatch Act.
We are following the Hatch Act. I have gotten with the Postal Legal Council, local management.
Here's how the Hatch Act works. If I'm a federal employee and I run in an election without a political party, that's legal. If I run, though, with a political party, that's against the law.
If he's not eligible, that is troubling.
Alderwoman April Prunty is up for re-election in that ward. She says voters deserve a candidate free of legal questions.
People who might consider casting a ballot in his favor are really being denied that opportunity.
In a statement to WIFR, the Rockford Board of Elections claims Stewart's candidacy likely violates federal law. That doesn't mean he isn't eligible for local office, but the Postal Service could suspend him.
I hope that the right things will be done.
Stewart's attorneys offer a different view. He can run in a primary, but in the general election, none of his competitors can be from a party that received votes in the last general election.
Cleanest, fastest way to go at everything was a primary.
In Rockford, Nathaniel Langley, WIFR News.
The Rockford Board of Elections says it doesn't have the legal authority to enforce the Hatch Act. It has notified the U.S. Attorney's Office to review this race.